You know what's wild? When you first started trading, you probably had no idea what you were doing. And yet somehow, you felt more confident than you do right now. After hundreds of hours watching videos, reading books, backtesting strategies, you'd think trading would feel easier. But here's the truth. It feels harder. Way harder. And I know this because I've coached over 500 traders, and almost every single one hits this exact same wall. They come to me frustrated, saying, I know so much more than I did a year ago, so why am I more paralyzed than ever? Here's what nobody tells you. The problem isn't that you're learning the wrong things. The problem is that knowledge itself creates a psychological trap that makes execution nearly impossible. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why your brain is working against you, and more importantly, how to fix it before it destroys your account. Point 1. The paradox of choice. When you first started trading, you probably knew one setup. Maybe it was a moving average crossover or a simple support and resistance play. And you just took it every time you saw it. But now, you know 15 different strategies. You understand RSI divergence, order blocks, market structure, volume profile, institutional zones, smart money concepts. And here's where it gets dangerous. Every time you're about to enter a trade, your brain starts running through this checklist. Okay, the 50 EMA is crossing the 200. But wait, the RSI isn't oversold yet. And should I wait for a higher time frame confirmation? What about the volume? Is this really a supply zone or just resistance? This is called analysis paralysis, and it's not a knowledge problem, it's a decision-making crisis. Here's the truth that's going to sting a little. When you only knew one thing, you couldn't second-guess yourself. Now that you know 20 things, every trade becomes a debate. And while you're debating, the setup plays out perfectly. Without you. But that's just the surface level, because there's something even more insidious happening beneath this. Point 2. The curse of knowing too much. The more you learn about trading, the more you become aware of everything that can go wrong. Think about it. When you were new, you didn't know about gap risk, overnight volatility, liquidity grabs, stop hunts, news events, correlation risks, black swan events. You were blissfully ignorant. And that ignorance actually helped you pull the trigger. Now, you know about the trader who got wiped out by a Swiss franc flash crash. You've seen how market makers hunt stops. You understand how one Fed announcement can reverse an entire trend. This is what psychologists call negative priming. Your brain has been trained to see danger everywhere. Here's what's happening in your brain. Every piece of knowledge you've gained has come attached to a story of failure. Don't do this because, avoid that because, watch out for this because. So now, when you're about to enter a trade, your brain doesn't see opportunity, it sees a minefield. And this creates a feedback loop. You hesitate, you miss the trade works. Now you're mad at yourself. So next time, you force yourself to take the trade. But you take it with fear. You exit early. It keeps running. Now you're even more confused. But here's where it gets really interesting, because there's a third layer to this that most traders never recognize. Point 3. Identity crisis. When you started trading, you had a clear identity. I'm a breakout trader, or I'm a trend follower. But then you learned about mean reversion. And it made sense, so now you're also a mean reversion trader. Then you discovered scalping could work, so you added that. Then someone showed you how swing trading builds wealth, so you started doing that too. Here's the psychological trap. You no longer know who you are as a trader. And this matters more than you think, because in the moment of decision, when you're staring at a chart with real money on the line, your brain needs a clear framework to operate from. But instead, you've got 5 different trader identities fighting for control. The scalper in you says, take profit now. The swing trader says, hold for the bigger move. The trend follower says, add to the position. The mean reversion trader says, this is extended, wait for a pullback. It's not that any of these approaches are wrong, it's that you're trying to be all of them at once. And your brain interprets this confusion as danger. So it does what brains do when faced with danger. It freezes. You've essentially created a too many cooks in the kitchen scenario inside your own head. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but isn't knowledge supposed to be good? Shouldn't I be learning all these things? Point 4. The illusion of mastery. Here's something that's going to sound counterintuitive. More information doesn't equal better decisions. There's a famous study where researchers asked radiologists to diagnose X-rays. First, they gave them basic information. The radiologists were 85% accurate. Then, they gave them twice as much information about each patient. Guess what happened to their accuracy? It stayed at 85%. But here's the kicker. Their confidence skyrocketed. The same thing is happening to you as a trader. You're consuming more information, feeling like you should be better, but your actual performance isn't improving and might even be getting worse. Because here's what nobody tells you. Most of what you're learning isn't making you a better trader. It's making you a better theorist. You can explain why the market moves. You can identify patterns in hindsight. You can speak the language. But when it's time to execute, all that knowledge becomes noise. The trader making money isn't the one who knows the most. It's the one who can act decisively on what they know. So what's the solution here? Because I'm not saying you should stop learning. Point 5. The path forward. The fix isn't to unlearn everything. It's to learn how to filter. Step 1. Define your core identity. Not 5 strategies, 1 approach. Are you a breakout trader? A trend follower? A mean reversion player? Pick one and let everything else be secondary. This doesn't mean you ignore other setups. It means you have a primary framework that guides your decisions. Step 2. Create rules-based clarity. Your knowledge should simplify your decisions, not complicate them. Instead of, I need to check 15 things, you need, if A, B, and C are present, I take the trade, period. Turn your knowledge into a checklist that leads to action, not contemplation. Step 3. Separate learning mode from execution mode. When you're trading, you're not learning, you're executing. When you're studying, you're not trading, you're learning. Stop trying to do both at the same time. That's when paralysis happens. Most traders spend years accumulating knowledge, thinking that one day they'll suddenly get it and everything will click. But that's not how it works. The click happens when you subtract, not when you add. When you remove the noise. When you commit to one approach. When you stop second-guessing and start trusting your process. The trader you were when you started, the one who could pull the trigger without overthinking, that person wasn't wrong. They just needed refinement, not replacement. So here's what we've covered. You're not struggling because you don't know enough. You're struggling because you know too much without a framework to organize it. The paradox of choice is paralyzing your execution. The curse of knowledge is making you see danger everywhere. Your fractured identity is creating decision fatigue, and the illusion of mastery is hiding the fact that information without action is worthless. Imagine if tomorrow you could look at a chart and just know. No debate, no second guessing, just clarity. That's not about learning one more strategy. That's about organizing what you already know into a system you can trust. Now here's the next problem. Even with clarity, most traders still sabotage themselves because of one specific psychological pattern that triggers right before they hit the buy button. I break down exactly what that pattern is and how to rewire it in my next video. You'll see it linked on screen. Watch that next because that's where most traders lose the battle, even after they've figured out everything we talked about today. Trust your process, execute with conviction, and remember, the edge isn't in knowing more, it's in doing better. This is the Symmetry Protocol.